For Keith. It was a gray, cold morning. I stood there in the sand beside that new concrete pier in Hermosa, a few yards from volleyball games, listening to remembrances of a man I used to work with when I was young, back in the day. When standing in the sand didn't make my ankle ache, when I ran more than I walked, when I talked more than I thought, when I thought my life was a lock, when I thought I had all the time in the world. And there were so many more people there, so many who said their lives had been touched, so many whose faces I recognized but couldn't find names. And I hung my head, stared down at my brown shoes in the sand as words and tears came down, as shouts from the games echoed through the gray, as a drunk yelled, "I knew him too!" And he stumbled away, and I tried to remember him. We had taught together at the same school when I was young. Back in the day when I lived to play volleyball, when teaching was a means to an end, when I used to give so many days away, when I watched the clock almost as much as the kids, when time really didn't mean all that much. I remember him, but without a clear memory, I can't even find a moment that sticks out, a conversation that still stands, but I knew him. Years later, we worked together again at a different school and said hello to each other, joked about the old days we'd shared, joked about common moments and people we knew when I was younger. Back in the day when basketball games at lunch were the best part of work, when I was still faking it at my job, when I still thought I'd move on to something else, when I thought fate would reach out and take me, when I still thought time was on my side. My sore ankle ached more insistently. My recently healed broken leg throbbed from the cold. I could hear the sound of a volleyball being spiked, the cry of success above the stories and tears floating by. And I leaned back and forth from one bad leg to another, my hands in my pocket, fiddling with my pen and keys, trying to remember one time when we talked, that I could remember beyond the day-to-day. All these old faces worn down by time, left as shadows I remember, but without names. Like all of that was another lifetime. And when I was young, back in the day, when I used to drill spikes into the sand, when pain was an abstract concept, when the future was full of success, when I still felt I could change the world, when I still believed I had time to kill. I thought the beach was a great place to celebrate a life, and I thought that's where I'd like mine to close at the edge of the sea, waves breaking, kids laughing. And I wondered who'd be there for me, who'd remember me, who really cared. And the reality sank in my life like my feet into the sand. Not many. Not many at all. When I was young, back in the day, when I never thought I'd be a cripple, when I never thought I'd be so at peace with being alone, when I never thought teaching could be a career, when I never cared about tomorrow, when I never thought I could run out of time. I hobbled away through the sand back to my car, turned up the moldy oldies, tried to get some motion in my ankle, tried to remember one thing Keith ever said to me. It was the reality of my life slipped through the gray, and the digital clock blinked off the seconds, and I think I missed every light while I was driving home. Heading off into another empty, cold day, remembering moments buried in the tunes from when I was young. Back in the day, when I couldn't find words to say what I meant, when I couldn't find love in the middle of the love generation, when I couldn't find peace in the middle of the peace movement, when I didn't think what I did mattered at all, when I still believed it would be better next time. I fell into the recliner, got lost in a ballgame on the tube, clicked the remote to The Godfather, made myself an offer I couldn't refuse. And I thought about faces and all the tears. I thought about my life and all the years. But although I followed the only path I knew, and I'd ended up in this great netherworld, it's my life so far from when I was young, back in the day, when I knew it all and took that for granted, when I thought winning meant more than playing, when I thought the future held out so much for me, when the moment was all that mattered, when I never thought my life would seem like such a long, long time, before I understood what time flies meant, before I really learned that life is a one-way street, before I could comprehend that time was killing me, before I realized how much every second counts, before I found out there are no second chances, before it became really clear that time is always short.